Kenny Loggins created the soundtrack to America's Good Times with smooth songs that made everything feel right. His mellow style and feel-good hits made him famous across the country. But underneath his calm appearance and popular songs, there was a competitive side that quietly disliked some of music's biggest names. He fought bitter wars over who controlled the soft rock music world. Behind his polished image, Kenny Loggins was fighting silent battles against artists he saw as threats to his success. The man who sang classics like Footloose and Danger Zone may have made songs about celebration and good vibes, but behind closed doors, he was working against musicians he thought were taking his place. In 1984, Loggins told a music industry insider that success in the business meant protecting what you had built. He said that some people think nice guys finish last, and maybe they were right. When it came to defending his place in the smooth rock world, Loggins showed a side that his fans never knew existed. These weren't just work disagreements. They were personal fights hidden behind California smiles and polite studio behavior. Christopher Cross, the overnight success. Kenny Loggins had strong bad feelings toward Christopher Cross, the singer from Texas. This wasn't about their different music styles. It was about watching a complete unknown win all the Grammy Awards that Loggins felt he should have won after years of building his career. The problems started in 1981 when Cross's first album won big at the Grammy ceremony, taking home 5 awards including Album of the Year. A former Warner Brothers executive named Mo Austin said that Loggins watched the ceremony from his home and immediately called his manager afterward. He said that Cross got everything with just one album that Loggins had been working toward for 10 years. He felt the music business had no Maury of his hard work. What hurt Loggins wasn't Cross's ability to make music, but the timing of when Cross got famous. While Loggins had been slowly building his career by working with Jim Messina and proving himself as someone who could make hit songs, Cross was getting praise from critics for what Loggins called beginner's luck. Loggins thought Cross's fast success made everyone who had worked hard for years look less important. In 1982, Loggins told Billboard magazine that some people get handed crowns, while others have to fight for every bit of respect. Many people thought he was talking directly about Cross's quick rise to fame. The rivalry got worse when both singers were trying to get their songs played on the same radio stations. At a 1983 music industry meeting, people who were there said Loggins completely avoided Cross's presentation. Later, he told his coworkers that he didn't need lessons from someone who just got lucky once. Cross seemed to have no idea that Loggins didn't like him. In interviews, Cross actually praised Loggins' ability to write songs. But for Loggins, Cross represented everything unfair about the music industry, getting instant fame without having to struggle for it. Michael McDonald, the partnership gone wrong. Loggins also had bad feelings toward Michael McDonald, someone he had worked with before. This wasn't about creative differences in their music. It was about feeling overshadowed by McDonald's special voice and watching him get credit for parts of their shared work that Loggins thought belonged to him. The problems reportedly started during their short recording sessions in the late 1970s, when McDonald was leaving the Doobie Brothers to start working alone. A producer named Ted Templeman said that Loggins became more and more frustrated during studio sessions. Loggins told him that McDonald's voice was so distinctive that P. Hurt Opal forgot there was anyone else in the room. He felt like he was becoming just a backup musician on his own songs. What bothered Loggins wasn't McDonald's skill, but how much attention he got. While Loggins was proud of his careful work and sophisticated melodies, McDonald was getting recognition through what Loggins called vocal showboating and blue-eyed soul that drowns out everything else in the mix. In 1983, Loggins told Modern Recording magazine that collaboration should be about balance, not one person taking over the entire sound. People in the music industry understood this as a clear attack on McDonald's dominating style. At a 1984 music industry dinner, witnesses said Loggins refused to sit at McDonald's table. Later, he explained to friends that he had helped launch McDonald's solo career, but now McDonald acted like he invented the sound they created together. McDonald seemed genuinely surprised by Loggins' cold behavior. In interviews, he called their recording sessions productive and friendly. But for Loggins, McDonald represented the worst kind of collaboration betrayal, using their shared work to launch his own career while claiming individual credit. Lionel Richie. The battle for love songs. Loggins was frustrated with Lionel Richie, who had been the lead singer of the Commodores. This wasn't about their different backgrounds. It was about watching Richie take over the romantic song market that Loggins thought belonged to him. The tension got worse in 1982 when Richie's solo career exploded with his hit Truly, while Loggins was having trouble keeping his own success going. A former Motown executive named Suzanne DePass said that Loggins went to a Richie concert and told her afterward that Richie had taken his audience and his radio format. He said those should be his love songs, getting that reaction from the crowd. What frustrated Loggins wasn't Richie's R&B background, but his crossover success. While Loggins had spent years perfecting the art of romantic soft rock, Richie was achieving huge popularity with what Loggins called soul music disguised as pop ballads and emotional manipulation that makes my honest songwriting look boring. In 1984, Loggins told Cashbox magazine that there was a difference between genuine romance and calculated sentiment. Many people understood this as a direct criticism of Richie's approach to love songs. The competition got more intense when both artists were being considered for major movie soundtracks. At a 1985 Hollywood party, witnesses said Loggins left early after hearing producers talk about Richie for a project. Later, he told his agent that they wanted flash-over substance now and that real craftsmanship didn't matter anymore. Richie seemed to have no idea about Loggins's bad feelings toward him. In interviews, he complimented Loggins's smooth professionalism. But for Loggins, Richie represented the commercialization of romance, turning what should be heartfelt expression into glossy entertainment that overshadowed more authentic, emotional songwriting. Phil Collins, The Soundtrack Invasion. Kenny Loggins had his most professional grudge against Phil Collins, the drummer from Genesis who became a superstar. His bad feelings toward Collins weren't about drumming or progressive rock. It was about watching Collins take over the movie soundtrack market that Loggins had worked years to establish as his specialty. The irritation reportedly began in 1984 when Collins scored massive hits with Against All Odds and other film themes while Loggins was being passed over for similar opportunities. A former Columbia Pictures music supervisor named Becky Shargo said that Loggins complained to her directly. He said he had built the soundtrack game and now some British guy was collecting all the prizes. He felt Hollywood had forgotten who pioneered this territory. What made Loggins angry wasn't Collins's ability to do different types of music, but his sudden control of film music. While Loggins had carefully built relationships with directors and proven himself with hits like I'm All Right from Caddyshack, Collins was getting prime soundtrack spots through what Loggins called accent appeal and European novelty that American producers find exotic. In 1985, Loggins told Music Connection magazine that movie music used to require understanding American culture and emotions. Many people recognize this as a pointed criticism of Collins's overseas perspective. The rivalry reached its peak when both artists were considered for the Top Gun soundtrack. At a 1986 studio meeting, witnesses said Loggins walked out when Collins's name was mentioned. Later, he told his representatives that he wouldn't audition for projects in the field he created. Collins seemed unaware of Loggins's bitter feelings. In interviews, he praised American songwriters. But for Loggins, Collins represented a foreign invasion, outsiders claiming success in the specialized soundtrack world that American artists had developed. John Denver, The Wholesome Image War. Loggins had deep jealousy toward John Denver, the folk pop icon. This wasn't about guitar skills or vocal range. It was about watching Denver effortlessly claim the wholesome, family-friendly market that Loggins desperately wanted to own completely. The envy reportedly got stronger throughout the late 1970s when Denver's environmental activism and pure image were getting widespread media praise. A former RCA executive named Joe Galante said that Loggins would obsessively study Denver's public appearances. He told his publicist that Denver got treated like America's musical sweetheart, while Loggins was just another pop singer. He wondered how Denver had cornered the market on being genuine. What towards? Meant that Loggins wasn't Denver's music, but his perceived authenticity. While Loggins was carefully crafting his own wholesome image through careful management and strategic song choices, Denver was achieving universal love through what Loggins called natural goodness that can't be manufactured, and effortless sincerity that makes everyone else look calculated. In 1979, Loggins told People magazine that some artists are born saints, while others have to work at appearing decent. People in the music industry understood this as a bitter admission about Denver's advantage. The frustration reached its peak when both artists were competing for family concert bookings and television specials. At a 1981 benefit concert, witnesses said Loggins refused to perform after Denver's set. Later, he explained to organizers that he wouldn't follow someone who makes virtue look so easy. Denver seemed genuinely confused by Loggins' distance. In interviews, he called Loggins talented and professional. But for Loggins, Denver represented unattainable perfection, natural wholesomeness that exposed everyone else's efforts to appear morally pure. James Taylor, the ultimate artistic validation. The most devastating rivalry of all was with James Taylor, the introspective folk legend, who reportedly earned Kenny Loggins' ultimate envy. This became the most painful professional comparison of his entire career. The torment reportedly began in the mid-1970s when Loggins realized that despite his commercial success, he would never receive the critical respect that Taylor commanded effortlessly. Former manager Irving Azoff said that Loggins would obsess over Taylor's reviews. He told Azoff that Taylor got called a poet while Loggins got called a hitmaker. He wondered why his success made him less legitimate as an artist. What devastated Loggins wasn't Taylor's sales figures, but his cultural status. While Loggins was achieving massive radio play and chart positions, Taylor was receiving reverence for what Loggins called simple songs that somehow get treated like literature, and acoustic guitar picking that critics worship while ignoring more complex arrangements. The fundamental difference was in how they were perceived. Taylor was seen as a serious artist whose personal struggles and introspective lyrics resonated with critics and fans on a deeper level. His songs were viewed as authentic expressions of human emotion and experience. Meanwhile, Loggins, despite his technical skill and commercial success, was often dismissed as a craftsman rather than an artist. This distinction ate away at Loggins because it suggested that commercial success and artistic merit were mutually exclusive. While Taylor's albums might not have sold as many copies as Loggins' biggest hits, they were treated with a reverence that Loggins craved. Music critics would analyze Taylor's lyrics for their literary merit and emotional depth, while Loggins' songs were often dismissed as well-crafted but ultimately shallow pop confections. Loggins felt trapped by his own success. The more popular his songs became, the less seriously he was taken as an artist. Taylor, on the other hand, seemed to effortlessly balance commercial appeal with critical acclaim. His personal struggles with addiction and depression, rather than damaging his reputation, actually enhanced his credibility as someone who had lived through real experiences and translated them into meaningful music. The irony wasn't lost on Loggins that his technical superiority in areas like arrangement, production, and melody construction meant nothing in the face of Taylor's perceived authenticity. Critics seemed to prefer Taylor's simpler approach precisely. Why? Because it appeared more genuine and less calculated. This left Loggins in the impossible position of being too successful to be taken seriously and too polished to be considered authentic. Taylor seemed unaware of Loggins' internal struggle. In interviews, he expressed admiration for Loggins' melodic sophistication and professional approach to music making. But for Loggins, Taylor represented the ultimate artistic validation that remained forever out of reach. No matter how many hit songs he wrote or how many albums he sold, he would always be seen as the successful entertainer, while Taylor was revered as the true artist. This dynamic revealed the deeper insecurity that drove many of Loggins' rivalries. It wasn't just about commercial competition or market share. It was about artistic legitimacy and cultural significance. Loggins had achieved everything that most musicians dream of: hit songs, album sales, sold-out concerts, and financial success. But what he really wanted was what Taylor had: respect, reverence, and the understanding that his work mattered on a deeper level than just entertainment. The broader pattern. Looking at all these rivalries together, a clear pattern emerges. Kenny Loggins wasn't just competing with other musicians for chart positions or radio play. He was fighting a deeper battle for legitimacy, authenticity, and artistic respect. Each of these rivals represented something that Loggins felt he lacked or couldn't achieve despite his commercial success.